As a class, you just read about the as of yet unexplained explosion of the USS Maine. We can easily say that this was the final straw that broke the proverbial camel's back when it came to the United States declaring war on Spain. It is no secret, as you learned recently, that quite a few people wanted the U.S. to go to war. In fact, one individual even claimed a war would turn our boys into men. Before we get started trying to determine what did happen to the USS Maine, a very quick vocabulary lesson. You will hear me referring several times to magazines. These are not the magazines that were on board the USS Maine. In military terms, a magazine is an ammunition storage and feeding device for a firearm. In the case of the Spanish-American War, we are discussing the Gatling gun, a predecessor to the machine gun. Just to make sure we're clear, we are discussing ammunition storage, not teen vogue. Cool? Cool. Okay, so now that we understand what it is that is actually exploding on board the USS Maine, it's time to see who caused the explosion. There are 3 different countries at play here. Cuba, obviously because it happened in Cuba. Spain, because they are our potential enemy. And the United States, because it's a United States ship. So, we are going to investigate whether it may have been Cuba on accident, Cuba on purpose, Spain on accident, Spain on purpose, America on accident, or maybe America on purpose? Let's see. Starting with Cuba on accident. In this scenario, Cuba was actually going for Spain, not the United States. Cuban revolutionaries may have been hoping to attack a Spanish warship. While making their way into the harbor with the setting sun, they miscalculated their target and hit the USS Maine instead of a Spanish ship, accidentally blowing up an American warship and sparking the Spanish-American War. In our second Cuban scenario, they did it on purpose. This time, they wanted America to have a reason to go to war, so they created a reason. Cuban revolutionaries could have snuck on board the USS Maine. While on board, they could have planted a bomb. The revolutionaries could have left the ship before the bomb went off so they weren't caught. In this scenario, the United States needed somebody else to blame for the explosion, and they didn't think that the little tiny colony of Cuba would have been capable. So they blamed Spain, declared war, and helped Cuba with their revolution. Next up, Spain. Could it have been Spain? Why would they do it? Well, it could have been an accidental explosion. But how does a huge country like Spain, with a strong army and a strong navy, accidentally blow up another country's ship? In this instance, Spain could have left mines in the harbor in response to the revolution, putting them there for Cubans, not for the United States. For those of you who have seen the movie Finding Nemo, those balloons, those are mines. You tap them, they explode. One of these mines could have detached and slipped away, nearing the USS Maine. The ship could have hit this rogue mine, causing the explosion. All it would take is a little wave pushing the mine toward the ship, or a little wave pushing the ship toward the mine, and bam! Everything just blows up. Maybe it was Spain on purpose. They wanted to threaten the United States so we wouldn't get involved in Cuba. In this scenario, they're trying to scare the United States. They want to get us away from Cuba so they can continue on with their war on their own. Spies could have snuck on board with an explosive to blow up the Maine. much like we saw in the purposeful explosion from the Cuban revolutionaries. Spain could have hit the Maine with an underwater torpedo. In this instance, we are assuming that they have some sort of submarine in the harbor that was able to go after the USS Maine. Spain could have purposely placed a mine underwater near the ship to cause the explosion, knowing that all it would take is a small wave to bump that mine into the ship and hopefully hit somewhere near the magazines to cause the explosion. In this instance, Spain is trying to prevent war by scaring us and showing us that they mean business. Looking at our last country, could it have been America? Why would we blow up our own ship? Well, it could have been an accident. Looking at the first scenario, someone could have been smoking on board the ship near the magazine room, and in putting out their cigar, accidentally caused a spark that ignited the explosion. If not somebody smoking on board, maybe the magazines could have been improperly stored, and when the ship swayed in the water, they toppled over, causing a spark that led to the explosion. Not realizing that it was an accident on board caused by its own sailors, the United States blamed Spain and declared war. And our last scenario? Could it have been America on purpose? Could they have actually blown up the USS Maine in order to frame Spain and force the war on our country? Let's see. Someone on board could have purposely caused the explosion in the magazine room. The United States could have also planted a bomb on board near the magazine room. And in doing this, the United States could frame Spain for the explosion and give us a reason for joining the war in Cuba. This way, we could potentially gain territories and become that world power that so many people wanted us to be. Now you get to decide. Was it Cuba? Was it Spain? Was it the United States?